Okay, we're live. Please double check lang. Shane, please
Okay.
check. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Let's start. Hope you're all feeling good, keeping safe. So for today's session, we have another certified CFA. He is the head of macroeconomics for CTS Global Equity, here to give his talk on part one of market sentiment. Please put your hands together for Jason Mariposa.
Wala ako narinig. Okay. So, hi guys. So, I'm so happy I did not graduate from school by online. So, hindi ko ma-imagine ganito. Diba? Anyway, at least, I think the world has progressed light years in the past year in terms of technology, diba? So, it's exciting times. I guess, wait lang. Hindi pa lang naka-share. I guess some intro muna. Yeah, I've been with CTS for 10 years na. 10 years. Diba? So, pinag-usapan nga namin lang Sheena kanina eh. So, when I entered CTS, Aboitiz Power was at 24. Today, Aboitiz Power is still at 24. Diba? So, kidding aside, I think it's a big opportunity. Alam mo yan? Diba? Can you imagine that? Diba? Stock prices for the past 10 years in the Philippines almost hasn't moved. Diba? So for me, that makes me bullish actually. Diba? Kasi if you study the market close enough, so yung market naman cycles lang yan eh. Diba? Cycles yan eh. Diba? May time na bearish, bullish, ganyan. Diba? So it's all about cycles. Okay? So that's one thing that you have to learn. Diba? Cycles. The second thing you have to learn is that markets run in trends. Diba? Trend is your friend. Diba? It's a very simple saying. Diba? It sounds too simple even, but trust me. Simple lang kasi talaga yung market eh. Diba? It's not easy, but trust me, it's simple. Diba? There's a saying that they say that the simplicity of the markets is its greatest disguise. Diba? So I really believe that. Diba? So simple lang pero hindi madali. So for today and tomorrow, what I promise is that the next 2 days I'm gonna give you guys a very good foundation, diba? Roadmap, diba? On how to analyze the big picture in the markets, market sentiment. Diba? I'm gonna give you all the tools that you need to know. Diba? What I can promise is na expert kayo in 2 days. Diba? So, walang ganun eh. Baka nga 2 years, hindi pa kayo expert eh. Diba? So, it takes some time to learn everything like as boss said yesterday. Hindi pala yesterday, but yung first day, diba? Lecture ni Boss Edward. So, okay. So for today, I guess just sentiment, why it's important, other things you have to know. Ito, common terms in the market, alpha and beta. Diba? So it's important to distinguish between the two. So alpha is stock-specific risk. Beta is market risk. Market risk. Diba? So just like what happened in March 2020 when everything collapsed. Diba? Whether it's a good company or bad company, parang everything collapsed. That's called market risk beta. Diba? Number 3, I think this is something that you guys need to know. A concept of market efficiency. I'm sure you guys are all familiar, diba? Pag sa school, ano ba yung sabihin nito? Ang sabihin nito, if there's like 1,000 peso bill on the floor, 5 seconds, 1 second, mawawala yan. Diba? So opportunities in the market are quickly competed away. Diba? So that's the assumption that you always need to know. Diba? Isang practical application. Diba? If the entire market is rallying, malakas yung market, then you have a stock that's down 50%. Is that an opportunity or not? It's not. Diba? I would stay away from that. Mas gusto ko pa yung up 50%. Diba? Why? Markets are efficient. If that's really an opportunity, that would have risen right away. Diba? So, yan lagi yung assumption natin. The market is efficient. So itong last more on, ito medyo sasakit ulo natin. This is a little bit about macroeconomics, but trust me, this is already very distilled, talagang core principles lang that you need to know. Pwede na ito palitan yung buong economics, basic economics, in one session. Okay, so let's start. So I guess, para konting, let's make this easy, kwentuhan lang konti. Diba? So this is the Hang Seng Index for the past 10 years. So the arrow there is where I started. I started trading April 2011, the Hong Kong market. So malas lang siguro, tok-tok yun. Diba? So over the next year, the market lost at the worst point 34%. So consolation price, I ended the year down 30%. Diba? Diba? So yan yung initial experience ko, down 30%. So anong nangyari dito, the Philippines also went down some parang 20+% ata eh. Siyempre ako excited, all in kaagad. Diba? So first experience, first experience talo. Diba? So parang for me, parang it's the opposite of what you read on the internet. Diba? Most people start in a bull market, make a lot of money. Diba? Then after a while, the market environment changes, talo. Diba? So for me, it was the opposite. Talo. Diba? So the first trading system I learned was momentum trading. I'm sure you guys learned about it. Diba? Pang bull market yung strategy. Diba? So, kala ko, at first I thought, okay, basta may tamang setup, dapat gagana to. Diba? But obviously, when the market was, what I didn't realize at the time that the entire market was against you. So, that was the key reason. Diba? Hindi naman mali yung turo sa akin ni Lawrence. Diba? So, for me, that was very invaluable. Diba? Sabi ng market kagad sa akin, uy, dami mong di alam. Diba? So that's very formative for me. Diba? So after 1.5 years na we were dying in the Hong Kong market, diba? So the US market got opened up to us. Diba? So ito, okay, excited na ako. Okay, what I learned 1 year after that first year, okay, you can't go against the market. Diba? Ang hirap masyado. Diba? So dito naman, US market, diba? Towards the end part of the year, it was selling off right here. So charting, madali lang, uptrend broken. Diba? The action was below the moving averages. This is 250. Diba? So I should be trading in the direction of the trend, which is down. So we were shorting the market here aggressively. Diba? So dito, kumita ako medyo marami. Kumita ako dito eh. Parang dito kumikita ako eh. Diba? Diba? Then, ito. Charting. Medyo marunong na ako niyan. I saw the breakdown here. Diba? Ayan, saya ko na. Diba? All in, short. Diba? Then, one day here, pagising ko, uy, yung kinita ko for the past 2 weeks, naubos na, mga 3 days lang. Diba? So, what happened here? What happened here was that the Fed, they were seeing the market which was selling off quite big. Okay, sabi nila, wait lang. Diba? I think we need to bail out the market again. Diba? So additional QE, whatever. Diba? So that stopped the market going down. So again, ano ba yung hindi ko alam dito? Diba? So I was adjusting to the market environment already. I was trading in the direction of the trend. Diba? What I ignored was the power of the central bank. Power of the central bank. Diba? Especially the Fed. Diba? I guess maraming beses nasabi na, but yun nga, parang you can't, the central bank kasi has a monopoly on the creation of money. monopoly on the creation of money. Gusto niyo gumawa ng pera? Yes, kaya niyo gumawa ng pera. Diba? And what's the stock market? It's just, ano mo yun, pera-pera lang yan eh. Maraming pera, there's a lot of money in the system, the market goes up. Diba? So lesson, can't survive on charts alone. Diba? There's something there that you don't see in the charts that's called yun nga, macro. Diba? It's called the Fed. Those stuff na alam mo yun, more on the fundamental side, macro side. Which, at this point, parang I was familiar in theory. Diba? Every day, sinasabi ni Boss Edward, don't fight the Fed, don't fight the Fed. Sabi ko, ha? Ano ba yan? Diba? Parang hindi ko na-appreciate yung power ng Fed eh. So, next experience ko was, Japanese market naman. So, Japanese market here went sideways for like 5 years. Diba? Then, 2012, you had the election of a new prime minister na medyo out of the box, Abe. So, he unleashed Abenomics, which is really just parang taking a page out of the Fed's playbook of printing a lot of money. So that's what they did, diba? And lo and behold, the market went up 83%. Diba? So dito, medyo marunong na tayo eh. So we started looking at the market here, diba? So yan. So this time, we were actually making a lot of money. Ang problema, parang I think around here, out na ako. Diba? So hindi ko na na-capture lahat. Diba? So what happened here, if you look at this, parang laki ng shakeout, then there's a big gap up. So what happened there was additional stimulus from the BOJ, which was, I wasn't that familiar, pero in hindsight, it was a gigantic piece of stimulus, parang trillions of dollars. Diba? That made the market go up again. So parang ako, parang sabi ko, hindi, overbought na to, shit, iwan na ako, bye-bye. Ayun, umakit pa ng 20+%. Diba? Diba? So I guess the lesson here was that, okay, this is how powerful the central bank is. Diba? Second lesson is really just trading. Alam mo yun, trend is your friend. Diba? Kaya mag-overthink, paano ko benta, paano ganyan? Kaya nga may stop loss eh. Diba? May stop loss naman tayo pag mali eh. Diba? So, in the markets, yun, another lesson is that you have to risk money to make money. Diba? Ayaw mo ng risk, huwag kang stock market. Ayaw mo kamali, huwag kang stock market. Diba? So, it's part of the game. Okay? So, ayan, during this time, same. The Philippines actually went up 100%. So, if it's a coincidence na same time period, hindi. So, this was a time of gigantic liquidity from everywhere. BOJ, lahat, China, US, lahat. Diba? So, what you're gonna learn here is that everything is connected. Diba? We have a globalized financial markets where money flows freely almost everywhere. So parang hindi siya yung Philippines ka lang. If you just analyze Philippine market, you're missing a gigantic piece of the picture. You have to look at it in a global perspective. So, ayan, so I guess you guys saw na, those were my foundational experiences. So for me, looking at it with the benefit of a few years, parang for me, I was very thankful pa na my first experience was humbling na, oy, wala kang alam. Wala kang alam, mag-aral ka muna. Diba? Parang hindi sa akin binigay ng market kagad yung pera. Diba? Kasi parang there's also this saying na, alam mo yun, ba yun? Wait lang. Don't confuse brains with the bull market. Diba? Parang hindi sabihin, wait lang. Hindi sabihin, bull market, magaling ka. Diba? So when the market changes, and you really didn't build up your competence in terms of analyzing the market, diba? Guess what? Diba? So, after my first few years, ito yung talaga yung ano ko eh, unconscious incompetence. Parang I didn't know what I did, what I needed to know when I first came in. Diba? So after the first few years experience, andito na ako sa pangalawa. Parang, oh shit, dami kong di alam. Hindi ko alam ano ba tong, why is the Fed so important? Ano ba yung sabihin ng money supply? Why is the sentiment, alam mo yun, ba't ang laki ng effect ng sentiment? Diba? Why is this charting not enough? Mga ganyan. Diba? So, syempre, after that, I got to reading. I also studied the CFA, natapos ko rin during this time. Diba? So, actually, yung first book na talagang binasa ko is this one. Jesse Livermore, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. Parang shit, grabe. This was a revelation to me. Diba? Na, this is what taught me. So, ito, tape reading, important part of the game. Ano yung tape reading? Yung price action. So, was beginning at the right time. So, was sticking to your position. But, my greatest discovery was that a man must study general conditions to size them up as to able to anticipate probabilities. Ibig sabihin yan, if you want the probabilities to be on your side, you should trade with the market on your side. Alamin mo muna ano yung market condition. Diba? Is the market okay, not okay, diba? So, ito, second, if the overall trend of the market's not in your favor, you're playing at an extreme disadvantage. Remember, go with the flow, bend with the trend, do not sail into a gale, and most of all, don't argue with the tape. Ano sabihin argue with the tape? Bakit yung parang laki ng ego mo na pababa yung buong market? Hindi, akit to. Diba? Pababa lahat, ay hindi, tama ako. Diba? So, this is not about your ego, but it's about making money. Diba? And if you want to make money, you have to see the market clearly. You have to see the market clearly. You won't see the market clearly if grabe yung bias mo, grabe yung ego mo. You're gonna be seeing what you wanna see. So that's the importance of clearing away your ego in tuning in to the market. Okay? And number 3, there is a time to go long, there is a time to go short, and there is a time to go fishing. Parang for me, this is one of the hardest lesson that took me years to learn. Kasi when we start in the market, parang excited ka. Sino ba hindi excited? You want action. Lagi ka naghahanap ng gagawin every day. Yan yung mindset mo eh. Mabali ka kumita ng pera. Diba? But ako, what I've learned is that my default position now is that I do nothing. Yan yung default ko. Ay, wala akong gagawin. Diba? Wala akong gagawin. Kailan ako may gagawin? If I see an opportunity na hindi ko to kayang, kailangan ko tumayo. Diba? It's that appealing. Sobrang appealing na pag wala akong gawin, sobrang tanga ko. Alam mo yun? So that's when I move. Diba? But my default position now is that I do nothing. Wait for something. Wait for the opportunity na, uy, buy na to. Uy, sobrang ganda na ito opportunity. I wait for that. Okay? So, ayan, I guess, haba ng first part natin. But, okay, why is sentiment important? 1, increase your success or hit ratio. Diba? Kasi why? If you analyze market sentiment properly, it points you to the right direction. Diba? So, 1, anong market dapat? Where's the money flowing? Diba? Is it the Philippines or is it US? Is it Japan? Diba? So, or if you're only trading the Philippines, baka dapat wala tayong gawin. Diba? So, number 2, what type of strategy? Diba? Momentum, swing, capitulation, ganyan. It all depends on the market eh. So if you got the first part right, market sentiment, automatically tataas na yung hit ratio mo ng malaki. maybe 30, 40, 50% better. Diba? That's a big one. That's a big ano, diba? 2, increase risk-adjusted returns. Ano sabihin yan? For every 100 pesos that you make, how much do you risk on average? Diba? It's called risk-adjusted return. Diba? So kasi kumita ka 100,000, pero talo mo 80,000, 'di ba? Tapos 20 lang yung kinita mo. Diba? So parang pag 20 lang yung tignan mo, net profit, hindi mo nakikita eh. Na hindi pala efficient yung ginagawa niya kasi ang laki ng talo. 'Di ba? But if you make 100,000, you lose only 20,000, yun. Mataas yung risk-adjusted returns. Diba? So if you look at the market, if you take into account market sentiment, that's a big part of the risk that you're analyzing. Diba? So kasi if your time frame is trading less than 1 year, actually there's a study na 2/3 of the time the risk or volatility in stocks is because of the market. It's because of what's happening in the market. So I guess case in point again is yung last year, March 2020, or that entire first quarter. 3, yan, anticipate outcomes better. Diba? Kasi at least you're more informed of the environment eh, diba? Okay, so ayan, global, what you need to know pa, global perspective needed as I mentioned a while ago. Diba? So these are all your major asset classes. Diba? You have gold. Itong TLT, this is 20-year treasury bonds. IEF, that's a 10-year treasury bond. So these are all your safe haven. Diba? Ito yung sinasabi ni boss, if it's a risk of environment, what do people buy? Siyempre yung mga defensive assets. Down here, you have your stocks, SPX. You have your corporate bonds, HYG sa US. Then you have your commodities. Diba? Those are your risky assets. So kasama na dyan yung emerging markets. Okay? So one, you have to know this. Okay, global perspective, is it a risk of or risk on environment? Diba? So this is a snapshot from last year na obviously, diba, it was a risk of environment. Not your safe haven or outperforming your risky assets. So it was like that at least until the last quarter of 2020. So yan, you have to look at it by asset class. You have to look at it from a geographical perspective. Pero ito, this is a lot of markets, but ang kailangan mo lang malaman dito, developing markets tayo or emerging markets versus developed markets. Okay? So may cycles din yan eh, na sometimes developed markets outperform, sometimes emerging markets outperform. So yun, so if you're trading the Philippines, malamang what you're looking for is for emerging markets as a whole to outperform. Kasi more likely than not, sasama yung Philippines, diba? So that's parang checkbox that you need to know. Okay, so the last one is sectoral. Ito, I guess this becomes more important, like for example, you're analyzing the US market ka na, diba? Or you've determined from top down, okay, Philippines tayo. Diba? Now, you need to know where the money is flowing. Diba? So actually, Philippines, this is not so much of a problem. Kasi parang most companies naman are, alam mo yun, similar old economy. Diba? But if the US, ayun, importante to. Diba? Kasi US has been divided into two. You have your tech, high growth, diba? Then you have your old school, old economy companies. Diba? So if you've been following the US for the past year, so obviously 2020, the high growth tech was in play. So actually naging defensive play yung tech eh. Diba? Because they're benefiting from COVID-19. Diba? Like Zoom went up 1,000% in 2020. Diba? And then what happened recently when yung last October, diba, vaccination breakthroughs were announced, And this year, you have acceleration in vaccination. So, ang umandar naman, old economy. Diba? So, if you're trading high growth, nothing was happening at least for short term, eh malamang hindi ka kikita ng pera. Diba? Okay, so one, global perspective needed. Two, I think this is a big topic. So when you're trading, when you're analyzing even fundamentals or even macro whatever, it's not about prediction. Not about prediction. I guess this is something na mahirap, hard to get your head around kasi parang if you look at the news, lahat sila prediction eh. Diba? Kasi that's what the people want eh. Diba? People want a sense of certainty. Diba? It's naturally ingrained in us na you want more certainty than not. Diba? Diba? So, pag yung mindset mo yung prediction, what's gonna happen to you is you're gonna overanalyze. Diba? Especially if yung background mo, let's say macro, hindi ka na maganda. What's gonna happen to you is overanalyze. Parang ma-analyze ka ng 1 million, 1,000 factors, whatever. Diba? With the mistaken notion that if you analyze more, you remove the uncertainty. Hindi totoo yun. Hindi totoo yun. No amount of analysis can remove the uncertainty. Diba? Kasi for one nga, most of the stuff you're analyzing are about the past eh. Diba? While the market looks to the future. Diba? The future is unknowable. Anything can happen. Diba? When you go into the market, kailangan assumption mo, hindi ko alam. Diba? Yan yung assumption ko parati. Yes, I have my own views, but I trade on the notion that hindi ko alam. Diba? Meaning, I have to manage my risk. Diba? Meaning, I have to see if what I'm thinking, if the price action is confirming what I think. Ayun, parang at least tama na ako. Diba? And ayan, trust me that you don't need to know what's gonna happen next to make money. Hindi talaga kailangan yan. It's an illusion, diba? That you can know enough to have an edge, or you can know everything. Hindi talaga. Diba? Ang stock market, simple lang. Overbought, you lighten your positions. Oversold, you deploy. Diba? Ganun kasimple lang yun. Diba? Like Philippines, March, way oversold. So you should be looking to deploy. Diba? Do you need to know what's gonna happen next? Hindi. But of course, it helps. It helps that paano alam mo yan, you have an overall picture of the environment, of where we are in the cycle. But to make money, you don't need to know what's gonna happen next. Okay? Forecasting is useless. Diba? So, eto, on the left, these are the forecasts of Wall Street economists, supposed to be the smartest in the world. And this solid line is actually what happened. So if you look at this, over the past 15 years, lahat ng forecast nila sa 10-year, almost 90% of the time is wrong. Diba? Mali lahat. So ito, this is 2019. So this is the predictions. So this is what actually happened. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. As traders, I always start with the assumption na I'm not smart, I don't know. Kasi that way, your mind is completely open to respond based on what you see in the markets, based on the action of the market, para mentally flexible ka. So ayan, ignore the headlines. Ignore the headlines. One, most of the stuff you see in the headlines are already priced in. So this is last year. So everyone was panicking, coronavirus, virus, lockdown, elderly most at risk. But guess what? By the time these headlines came, packet ng market. Okay? Parang it's a contrarian indicator. Second, here on the left, parang sad. Siguro, baka may ma-hurt sa akin, but unfortunately, parang the news doesn't care about reporting the right stuff anymore. Just for me. You can have the different opinion, that's okay. This is probably debatable. But parang for me, ever since alam mo yun, ever since media became free, mostly free, ever since it became advertising driven, unfortunately, it's all about the clicks. But it's not even about reporting the right stuff anymore. Diba? And I think this is especially true about the market kasi parang wala naman talaga may alam eh. Diba? Actually, most of the headlines are backward looking. Diba? Yung most of the headlines you see depende sa galaw ng market. Diba? If the market was bullish up last night, ito yung headlines na nalalagay nila. If down yung market, mag-iiba yung headlines. Alam mo yun? It's just I guess it's feeding on human nature that is looking for explanations for every move of the market. Diba? Eh, parang ako, pag overbought, di profit taking, ganun kasimple lang. Alam mo yun? I don't know. Who knows what's happening exactly by that minute, diba? Diba? So, just yun nga, accept that it's a probability game. You don't need to know what's gonna happen next in the market. What you need is a system with an edge. System with an edge. Na yung sistema mo, if you do it 100 times, you're gonna make this amount of money. Diba? So what you do is just do it over and over again. Let the probabilities work for you. It's a probability game eh. So, yan. So those who have knowledge don't predict. Plus me, kasi parang, especially the markets, diba? The more you study this, the more you figure out, dami kong di alam. Diba? So actually, it's really the best assumption na, especially short term, I don't know what's gonna happen. Diba? Diba? So, versus prediction, versus forecasting, versus trying to predict what's next move based on the news, diba? What you have to be aware of is that everything is a probability. Then what you have to be aware of is scenarios. Anong mga pwedeng mangyari? That's the better mindset to have. Diba? Ano yung probable? What's plausible? What's possible? Okay. Meron bang anybody familiar with this concept of the futures cone? Sige, parang school tayo. Raise your hands. Meron ba familiar dito? Wala. Walang gusto mag-raise ng hands. Okay. So, probable means there's a more than 50% chance of it happening. Okay? Plausible, it's still possible, but unlikely. So I would say, if I would put a number on it, maybe 25% chance of happening. Or somewhere like that. Possible is that you can't prove that it can't happen, but there's a very small probability of it happening. Meaning, I would say less than 1% chance. Diba? So when you're analyzing the market, be worried that most of the stuff you read on the internet, the news especially, are very sensationalistic. Parating worst case scenario or best case scenario, diba? Kasi yun yung interesting sa mga tao eh. Diba? So parati siyang andito sa realm of possibility pero highly implausible, highly improbable. Diba? So for example, in March 2020, diba? Everybody thought everything was gonna collapse. Dark Ages, Depression, basta lahat ng doomsday scenario. Diba? Which was posible but not probable. Diba? Ano yung probable is that the system was probably gonna hold, authorities were probably gonna do everything, it's probably not the end of the world. Diba? So most likely scenario, most probable is that it's a buying opportunity. Nagkasi yun, diba? That's the most probable. Kailangan, when you're analyzing the market, you always bet on the probable. Diba? Kasi, I mean, basic statistics, diba? If you bet on the probable, most of the time, you're gonna make money. Diba? So, parating ganyan kayo mag-analyze dapat. Diba? So, like for example, between two extreme scenarios, what's probably gonna happen is somewhere in the middle. I mean, statistically speaking. So, ganun yun. Okay? Okay? So, next, yan, follow trends instead. Diba? Kasi yun nga, it's much easier to follow trends than to imagine one in your head. Diba? So as traders, that's what we do. Follow trends. Where's the money flowing? Diba? Ganun ka simple lang. Diba? And lastly, learn to analyze cycles. Diba? So, cycles. So ito, like this is the US market. You're gonna see here a very nice pattern, diba? 10 years bear market, 10 years bull market, roughly 10 years, 10 years, sometimes more. Diba? So like kaya sabi ko Philippines, diba? 10 years almost sideways. Oh, I'm excited. Diba? What's gonna follow next? Diba? Diba? So this is from Howard Marks. Rule number 1. Most things prove to be cyclical. Rule number 2. When people forget rule number 1, there's money to be made. Diba? So, yan. So, biggest tip ko na, ayan, Philippines. Diba? Everything is a cycle. Almost. There's a lot of cycles, diba? May sa economics, may inventory cycle. May capex cycle. May political cycle, regulatory cycle, all of those things. Diba? Okay? So, if I would, parang analogy, I guess is, of what I'm trying to say here is that, parang trading, it's about, parang siyang surfing. Surfing. So, if pag surfing ka, tapos walang wave, I mean, guess what's gonna happen to you? Wala. Diba? So pag surfing ka, aabangan mo yung wave. Doon ka pupunta. Diba? So I remember a time, sumasama ko sa friend ko na medyo addict mag-surfing eh. Ang ginagawa niya, tutulog lang siya. Diba? Tapos pag may wave na, tatakbo siya ng dagat. Wala siyang pakialam kahit 5 AM ng umaga. Diba? So it's the same with trading eh. Parang sumasabay tayo sa market. And may weather din siya. Sometimes walang wave, sometimes meron. Diba? So, yeah, that's a good analogy also. That's a good analogy of the market. So, may one thing lang na medyo imperfect yung analogy niyo is that the market is a complex system. It's a lot more dynamic than that. Diba? Meaning, cycles are often self-reinforcing and self-defeating. Ano sabihin nun? Diba? Yung market kasi may expectations in it. It's not filled with robots buying and selling. It's people. Diba? So like ang pwede mangyari sa market is that because prices went up, expectations went up also. Nagets nyo? Diba? That's so kaya siya nagiging self-reinforcing. Parang may pagka self-fulfilling siya. Diba? That and if people are bullish, then conditions can become more bullish. Diba? How? They invest more money. They borrow more money. Diba? So nagets nyo? So yung markets, it's more complicated in that there are parang natawag dyan is reflexivity. Reflexivity. Parang it feeds onto itself. And when the cycle turns, it also feeds on itself to the downside. Maraming ganyan mechanism yung market. Well, beyond the topic of the day. Okay? Okay? Wait lang. So, mamaya na lang questions Mamaya na lang, tapusin natin to. Okay, second part, I guess just a deeper look into this alpha and beta. So alpha, stock specific risk, beta, market risk. So if you're, for example, you're Peter Lynch, you're a investor ka, what's happening in the market doesn't matter to you. It's meaning yung beta sa'yo, it's hindi siya importante. The secret of investing is that first, find the disparity. Sabi dito, yung first part of the quote, even if its company is doing well, it doesn't mean the stock price is going up. So that's where the disparity comes from. Meaning the fundamentals is good but the stock price is down. Baka it's way below its fair value, mura na. So that's what the first thing you're looking for, disparity. Second, being patient. Number 3, I forgot to say, of course, you have to do your homework. So, pag investing, yan simple lang yan. So, it's just long term, it's like this. Prices converge with fundamentals. Short term, I think it's a different story. So, this is the reality. Fundamentals are here, but this is the stock price. It's all over the place. So, the biggest factor that can cause those disparities, if you guessed it, is market beta or market risk. So, since yung time frame natin sa trader is here, nasa short term tayo, you have to know this animal. So, you have to identify, parang okay, the stocks are going down. Why? Is it because of the market or is it because of bad fundamentals? How do you know? It's very easy. We call it relative strength. Relative strength. Market going up, this stock is going down. What's the likely reason? Something happening with the company. It's as simple as that. Simple as that, diba? So March 2020, market was down 30% 1 month. This stock is also down 30, 40, 50%. What's the likely reason? Market. So, pag ganun, parang dali identify market. Of course, sometimes may fundamental problem din at the same time. But most likely, it's the market. So, another case, this is how we look for opportunities. Let's say, market's going sideways. This stock is going up. What's driving it? It's not the market. Obviously, it's fundamentals. So, that's how you use this notion of alpha and beta to find opportunities. To know at least what's happening. Parang one look lang, at least may clue ka na what's happening. And actually, for us, for our trading floor, ito yung pinaka-basic. Basic screener, outperforming the market. That's where you start. So, outperforming the market. You can also buy those that are at par with the market. That's fine. So, most likely, what's gonna happen to you is yung bibili mo yung mga blue chips. So, that means that you're playing the beta. So, that's fine also. Basta, rule number 1, don't touch the laggards. There's a time to do that also, but very rarely we do that. Ginagawa lang namin yung let's say March 2020, again, panic selling, end of the world, yun, pwede. So, ayan, for traders, beta is more important than alpha. So, I'm sure you guys heard of this. Rising tide lifts all boats. Example. Mamaya. Ito, example. So, this is what happened last year. Yeah, the bankrupt companies going up 200, 300, 400%. So, that only happens in a bull market. People have a lot of money, a lot of liquidity in the system, a lot of money to play around with, diba? Diba? So, ayan, never underestimate the power of sentiment. Fundamentals might be good for the first part of a move, first 50 or 60% of a move. But the last part of a bull market is a blow off where the mania runs wild, the prices go parabolic. You're gonna hear this a lot, parabolic. Ang sabihin niyan, prices are rising normally, mabagal. Then towards the end of a trend, bibilis. Ang sabihin parabolic increase. So if you just know how the market works, that's usually the last part of an increase and the most exciting. And that's why we always say trend is your friend. Diba? Imagine if you sell before the parabolic move, masakit yun. Diba? Okay? So I guess another thing, I think this is the best example of Tesla of the power of bull market. So if you look at what happened to Tesla last year, 1,000%. At the peak, I think almost 800 billion market cap. 800 billion market cap, parang top 5 biggest companies in the world. If you look at all the other auto companies, if you combine all the market caps, mas malaki yung Tesla. But the thing is, like Toyota makes 10 times more revenues than Tesla. Ito, Tesla 2020, 26 billion revenues. Toyota makes 10 times. Diba? So, anong pina-price in ng mga tao? What are people pricing in the future here? Diba? Obviously, a lot of things. Diba? Leader of EVs, robotaxis, diba? Autonomous driving, which are not here yet. Baka matagal pa, 5 to 10 years away. But the market's already pricing it in. Diba? Looking way ahead. Diba? So, pag bullish yung market, that's what happens. Diba? Meanwhile, if you look at the Philippines, at the lowest point of last year, parang trading at what? 0.5 price to book, 6-7%, 10% dividend yield. Alam mo yun, ang laki ng kinikita pero why is the valuation so low? So, ayan. So I guess this point is just separating the alpha and the beta, and just appreciating how grabe influence ng beta. Diba? Alpha or the fundamentals is important, but I would say if yung market pangit, hindi ma-appreciate yan. Diba? Pag okay naman yung market, something that's gonna happen 5 to 10 years from now is already being appreciated now pa lang. So that's the power of market sentiment, diba? So next is the concept of market efficiency. So first thing, I told you guys a while ago that your main assumption in the market should be that the market is efficient. So there's this study about this collective intelligence, which this Francis Galton discovered, no? Or about the wisdom of crowds. So sabi niya, like ito, may isang experiment noong 1906. 800 people trying to guess the weight of an ox. To his surprise, the average of all the guesses was 1,197 pounds. The real weight was 1,198 pounds. So there's countless studies of this being made about the collective intelligence of the crowd. Kasi what we just hear is that the crowd is dumb. Don't do what everyone is doing. Parang okay. Parang you missed a huge part of it eh. That crowds can also be very intelligent. Diba? Kasi you're harnessing the collective insights of everyone. Diba? So, yung market, ganun din siya. That, okay, this is the action of the market, this is going up, this is going down. I don't know what's happening, but I assume that the market is efficient. There's a reason why this is happening. Diba? Diba? So this is a reason why I'm happening. Kaya parang practical application nga, no, yun nga, stick to the leaders, avoid the laggards. Diba? There's probably a reason why it's down there. Diba? That's always your key assumption. Diba? So, yung market, ayan, ganun din. So, ayan. So I think this is actually very applicable to the markets. No? So, stay long enough in the market, parang makita mo, galing ng market, butik. Parang ako lang pala, hindi ko lang pala alam ano nangyayari sa market. Di ba? So let's say this stock is going up, bigla na lang malalaman mo, may news lalabas. Di ba? May news lalabas. Okay, kaya pala umakit to. Di ba? That the market already knew was going to happen. Or may insider info sila. Di ba? Especially in the Philippines. Okay, so I guess practical application. You have you guys seen what happened to GMA? GMA 7, 'di ba? 'Di ba parang triple na yung stock price, 'di ba, over the past year? Have you guys seen what happened to ABS? Oh, 'di ba? So even if you didn't know anything about what's happening, this concept of this market efficiency and relative strength, what stock would you look at? Ako, GMA ako. I'm not saying na walang opportunity yung ABS, but for me as a trader, I would choose GMA. For me, it's easier money to be made. Okay? So, ayun sinasabi niya dito na, okay, there's a wisdom to the crowds. Sure, sometimes they can be incredibly stupid, market can be irrational, but most of the time, it's efficient. Diba? So, I guess another point here is that you have to be very careful of going against the crowd. May tamang, there's a right time, but most of the time you have to be very careful. Diba? So sabi ni Soros here, who's a very famous macro investor also, being so critical, I'm often considered a contrarian. But I'm very cautious of going against the trend. I'm likely to be trampled on. Most of the time, I'm a trend follower. Pero sabi niya, I know when to disengage from the herd. Wait, sobra na to. Diba? I know when to disengage from the herd and look for a different investment thesis. Okay? Diba? So, ayan. So, I guess, this is an example of how efficient the market is. These are all your top performing software stocks. Benefited a lot from COVID. Like for example, Zoom. Ayan, Zoom. So this is pinutol ko September, pero actually umakit pa yung Zoom eh. But if you look at this, even before COVID was widespread, even before COVID got obvious, all your software stocks were already outperforming the market. The market, ito green line here. Ayan, green. Diba? Look at that. Diba? Even before COVID was very obvious, umakit na siya. Diba? So, parang may naamoy na yung market eh. So, even if you weren't following the markets just by this information of more technical kind of information, ang dami mo na nakuha dito eh. Diba? And yeah, this is why yun nga, technicals is very very important. Diba? A part of the FTSR framework. Look at that. Zoom meeting participants. First quarter of 2020, 300 million a day. Last year, hindi ko alam ilan ba to. I think it's times 10 eh. Times 10 eh. Okay? So, yes, most of the time market is efficient. Sometimes the market can get very inefficient. especially in developing markets like the Philippines, where your liquidity is very, very low. Diba? So, look at this. This is the opening of yung March 19, 2020, when the market was down 23%. Diba? How easy is it to make it go down that much? Look at that, 1 billion traded lang. So, because of the illiquidity of most developing markets like the Philippines, these inefficiencies can happen. So if you look at it, it very quickly disappears. Very quickly disappears. May syempre hindi totally mawawala, pero the lion's share of the profit, parang isang lingon mo lang nawala na kagad din. Diba? So pag Philippines, mas mabagal mawala, mas mabagal. The inefficiency is greater. The time when the inefficiency disappears also mas matagal. Okay? So, basta, to make it short, just especially if you're trading global markets, pay close attention to the market's leading names. So usually, yung leaders lumalabas pag medyo mahina pa yung market actually. Diba? Kaya nga leaders yung tawag sa kanila eh. Diba? So by the time the market breaks out, these leaders would already be obvious. Diba? I'm not saying wala na yung opportunity, but obvious na siya. Diba? Most of the greatest traders build their fortunes by trading leading names. Diba? So this Mark Minervini made 99% of his profits in the market by trading leading names. Okay? So yung major influence si Minervini is also Jesse Livermore. May sinasabi niya, diba? That it works today, it works 100 years ago. Confine your studies to the prominent stocks of today. If you can't make money out of the leading active issues, you're not gonna make money out of the stock market as a whole. Diba? One of the greatest mistakes that even experienced investors make is in buying cheap securities just because they are selling at a lower price. Diba? So, just by knowing how the market works, yung mga laggard, yung mga naiwan sa ilalim, most likely, something is wrong with them. Diba? So, occasionally, siguro may isang jackpot dyan. May isa o dalawa. But, most of them are gonna underperform for a very long time. Diba? So, just by basic statistics alone, dapat doon ka sa taas. Okay? So last part, so some basic macro. I think marami yung pinanood sa inyo guys, diba, homework. You don't have to finish it, but trust me, required. Okay? So this is parang ito yung meme eh. And this is the meme that was circulating in the Twitter, FinTwit, Reddit in the last year, diba? That everything was in shambles, diba? But the stock market parang okay pa rin, diba? So I guess this is what people felt, diba? Especially if you were not really very familiar with the market, diba? But yung market is forward looking, diba? Parang it ignores what's here. Parang nakatingin siya sa malayo eh. Diba? Past is past. Diba? While most economic data that people are looking at is based on what happened in the past month, in the past week, in the past year, which is mostly irrelevant. Irrelevant. Parang ang tawag dyan, lagging economic indicator. So it's useless. So, it just kwento-kwento, okay, this happened, pero okay, what's next? Diba? Investors are looking at what's next. Diba? So, if you don't know that basic, talagang matuthrow off ka ng market. Diba? Shit, nakakatakot. Why is the market going up? Diba? Diba? So, the best leading economic indicator is by far yung liquidity. Liquidity. What's liquidity? It's just quite literally the amount of money in the financial system. If there's a lot of money in the system, then most likely tomorrow is going to be better. If the liquidity in the system is going down, okay, then the economy, then the stock market is going to suffer. Okay? So it's this simple na okay, na kaya namin nilagay dito to eh. So this is the emotional cycle of investing boss was talking about. What's the single most important variable is your financing available, aka liquidity. Okay, so like today, you have a lot of liquidity, overflowing liquidity everywhere, so things are going up, diba? Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here, but the most important is money supply. Money supply. It's just the amount of money in the system, amount of base money, which the central bank has monopoly control, diba? Via, these are the basic tools. Open market operations, meaning bond buying. If the Fed buys bonds, then the money goes in the system. Diba? Lower or higher interest rates. Bank reserve ratios. Reserve ratio is the amount of money banks have to set aside. Diba? So let's say may 1 million deposit. If it's 10% reserve ratio, diba? 100,000 is going to be kept in the central bank. So if you look at this, I converted this S&P 500 into year-on-year change. Year-on-year change. So if you look at it, grabe yung influence ng liquidity. Of course, I'm not saying liquidity lang. Siyempre may ibang factors pa. But this is the biggest influence. Okay, look at this. 2012 to 2015, look at that. Liquidity was still growing, but decelerating na. Decelerating. Diba? Pag stock market, parating yan rate of change parati yan Rate of change. Rate of change importante. Okay? And look at the performance of the market here for the next 3 years. Diba, pangit? Diba? So what's happening here, 2015-16 was China was slowing down. Diba? Of course, China's a gigantic economy, so people got scared. Diba? At the same time, nag-top out din yung liquidity ng na pinapasok ng central bank. Diba? So this is what happened to the market. Okay? Market went up here, liquidity was going up again. So here, to prevent bear market again, all the major central banks decided to inject more liquidity into the market. Okay, so recovery market. So there was a bull market 2016, 17. Okay, sobrang lakas nito yung emerging markets including the Philippines. Okay, look at this. The liquidity peaked out 2017 from mga 8% year-on-year growth. It became single digit in 2019. So this was the time when the Fed was raising interest rates or normalizing interest rates. So guess what happened to the market? We had a huge sell down here. So US market I think went down more than 20%. Okay? Okay, and then sige, fast forward natin today. Market crashed in last year. There was could have been a gigantic credit crisis kasi parang okay, lahat ng cash flow na tao tumigil. Look at what happened. Money supply went up at the peak almost 30% year on year. Diba? So lo and behold, umakit yung market. Kailangan pa ba ng convincing, guys? Diba? So this is how powerful liquidity conditions are. Diba? So like the most important question is what's the central bank doing tightening policy, decreasing the money supply, raising interest rates, hawkish, or loosening policy, dovish. Okay? So, ito yung pinaka traditional. Okay? But if you study what's happening in the US today and other developing markets, they've already exhausted this traditional policy tool. What do I mean? Zero na yung interest rates eh. Diba? I mean, coming into the crisis, the interest rates were almost zero. Diba? So, ibig sabihin, useless na tong policy na to. So, what they're doing now is a combination of zero rates and fiscal spending. So, maraming fiscal spending. Diba? Financed by money printing, cheap interest rates. Diba? Pero Philippines, we're still here in the basic toolbox. Okay? So, I guess just for you guys to visualize, okay, how powerful the creation of money is. Okay? So, this is your basic banking system. So, let's say the Fed creates 1,000 of money supply. 1,000 of money supply. Diba? Pag dumaan yan sa banking system, it can be lent out numerous times. Maraming beses. Diba? So, at the end of the rainbow, this 1,000 money supply can become 3,400 of spending. So, di ba na magic siya? Diba? It's called the magic of fractional reserve banking. Diba? Where a certain amount of base money can be multiplied into X amount of spending. That depends on the money velocity. Okay? So, ilan yung basic niya. Diba? Okay. So, the downside of this, ang tawag natin is credit-based system or yung grabing influence ng central banks is interdependence. Diba? Kasi, like going back to this, diba? Parang lahat ng tao may utang sa bangko. Company A may utang sa company B may utang sa company C may utang sa ganitong bank, diba? That because of this credit-based system, diba? If something happens, let's say a big enough borrower becomes bankrupt, diba? Everything is connected. Interdependence, diba? So this is how your financial crisis starts, diba? Like itong 2019 to eh. The people were concerned about Deutsche Bank, one of the biggest banks in Germany. Then they took the exposure of all the biggest banks in the world to Deutsche Bank, diba? Kasi lender sila. Lahat pala exposed lahat. Diba? So it's all connected lahat. So ayan, focus on the movement of liquidity. There's a million economic indicators out there, but unfortunately 90% of them are useless. 90% of them are lagging, diba? So the most important leading indicator is liquidity. Focus on the central bank, which has a monopoly on the creation of money. Whatever it wants to happen, kaya niyang gawin. Diba? As long as it has control over the printing press. Okay? So, diba? Ayan, this is the economic cycle. So, if you look at the traditional economic indicators like GDP, ang pinapakita sa'yo, what happened dito? Okay, GDP grew 6%. So, roughly speaking, spending increased 6%. Pero, yan yung effect eh. Diba? It's late, lagging. Ano yung cost ng increase in spending is expansion in borrowing, which is related to liquidity. Diba? So, major decision factor naman ng interest rates of central bank is what's happening to employment, what's happening to the economy. Okay? So, I hope it's clear. Matatapos na to. So, ayan, no? So, in terms of the most powerful central bank, there's a reason why we keep talking about the Fed, no? The Fed is the Fed is the most powerful. Why? Because the US dollar is the most most widely used currency in the world. It's a global reserve currency. Ang sabihin niyan is that lahat ng savings ng mga bansa, yan, no, 60% of them are in US dollars. Diba? Why? Diba? Kasi maybe I'm not sure about the exact number. I think 60 to 70% of global trade, meaning you want to buy oil, you want to buy metals, lahat yan, it's quoted in US dollars. So, if you want to buy stuff you need to have US dollars. Diba? That's in yung currency of choice ng mga tao. Diba? So that's how powerful. That's why the Fed is so powerful. 60% of global reserves US dollar. Maybe that will change someday. But as of today, maybe in the next 10 years, I think it's still gonna be the US dollar. FX trading, this is the US dollars. 6 trillion. Medyo luma na to, pero I think it's still the same. Diba? A big gulf between everyone else. Okay? So it's not just trade. If you look at finance, meaning funding, kasi pag uutang ka sa global markets, people want US dollars. But let's say, Yala Corp, I want to go outside. So, if you want to attract a lot of investors, you have to issue a bond in US dollars. Okay? So, most of finance globally is also in US dollars. Diba? Kaya ganyan ka-powerful yung Fed. Diba? So, basically, the financial system globally, 60% is in US dollars. Diba? Kaya grabe yung influence nila. Okay, so I guess just some examples. No? So this is the US market in the past 23 years. So sa baba, this is the policy rate of the Fed. Diba? Meaning if this rate goes up, all the borrowing rates in the banks go up. Diba? If this rate goes down, all the rates that if you go to a bank, it also becomes cheaper to borrow. Diba? So, message here is that there's a correlation. Diba? So, look at that. So, this is 1997. Diba? It was a nice bull market. So, what nangyari dito? There was a crisis in Asia. Diba? Asian financial crisis. The central bank got scared, Fed got scared, they lowered interest rates. Guess what happened? Boom, there's the dot-com bubble. Dot-com bubble. Diba? So eventually, the Fed started raising interest rates. So eventually, nag-top out na yung bubble and exploded. Diba? Okay, so everything slowed down here. 2001, 2, 3, 4, the Fed brought interest rates from 6 to I think around 1%. So ang next bubble na nangyari dito is the subprime mortgage crisis, which the Fed unknowingly popped in 2006 when they raised interest rates from 1 to 5. Okay, so if you study the mortgage crisis slowly, a lot of people were actually seeing it way back in 2006-07 pa lang. Diba? So, nagsimula yun, of course, the unraveling of that bubble started, of course, when borrowing became more expensive. Okay? So, 2008 crisis, rates become 5 to 0. Okay? We have a very big bull market. So even if the growth was weak, okay, you had a gigantic bull market in stocks. Okay? So, ito yung kanina, ayan, the Fed, okay, sabi niya, 6 years of zero rates, I think we have to raise rates. Finally, they figured out. Rates went from 0 to 2.25. 2.25. Okay, hindi na kinaya ng market. Okay? So I guess for the economics oriented here, ba't parang downtrend yung rates? Diba? Ba't downtrend? One, because growth was slowing down, inflation was going down. So yung level of rates then, what that's considered normal, also goes down. Diba? Second question, ba't dati kaya ng market 5, 6, ba't ngayon 2.5 lang? Parang puputok na yung market. Diba? It's because of the level of debt in the system. So naturally, pag tumataas yung level of debt as a percentage of your ability to pay, naturally you're more sensitive to smaller and smaller movements in the rate of borrowing. So economics lang. Diba? So again, it's your ability to pay versus the amount you have to pay. So it's relative to your ability to pay. Parang if you show me a number na, okay, Philippine debt 1 trillion, so parang for meaningless eh. Diba? Okay? So, ito, example, this is a very famous example na I guess relevant to today. Diba kasi yun yung takot ng lahat eh. What if the Fed suddenly sabi niya, wait lang, sobra-sobra na yung stimulus binibigay ko. I think we have to taper down our stimulus programs or slow it down. Diba? So, for historical context, this is what happened in 2013. Diba? 2009, 10, 11, 12, gigantic amounts of stimulus is being injected. This is what happened to the Asian markets. Diba? Philippines, up ng 250% here in just a few short years. Diba? I was lucky enough to have experienced this before nag-sideways yung market na next 10 years. Okay? So, this is what happened. Laki. Diba? But, I think a key difference today is that in 2013, it was a complete surprise. Meaning, no forward guidance, no thinking about doing this, which is happening today na parang wala pa nangyayari. We're thinking about raising rates. Parang gibberish na eh, diba? But what this is that parang today it's different. The Fed is already so afraid of shocking the market that nothing is a surprise, which for me is wrong, but that's the way it's happening today, diba? Na parang ang daming forward guidance that okay, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, diba? So I think if it happens again today, it's already well expected. I don't think we're gonna get the same reaction, diba? Or maybe way before it even happens, the market's already started to have a correction. Diba? That when the actual tapering is announced, packet na yung market. Okay, so I guess just some fundamental background of why the correction was so big. So this is a normalized meaning starting with the same base of 100 2009. The market here went up 260%, but the earnings only went up around 175%. So this extra 100% return, alam mo na, galing sa liquidity. Diba? So, kaya nung nag-change your course yung Fed, of course, very, very exposed yung Philippines and other emerging markets. Okay? So, I guess just summarize everything today. Okay? So, contrary to popular belief, the best time to invest is when everything is bad. I mean, economic-wise. Recession, unemployment. That's the best environment to invest in. Kasi, kasama mo yung Federal Reserve. The Fed, all the central banks are injecting liquidity in the system. So that's when the best return for stocks are. So if everything is booming already, inflation is coming out, central banks raising interest rates, companies are building inventory, engaging in capex, that's when liquidity is going down. That's when most likely stocks are going to top out as well. Parang pangit na yung return. So ayun. So I hope I invalidated all your economics classes because it's really this simple. Okay? I think parang when I learned about this, parang grabe, ang complicated pala ng economics sa Ateneo, ganun. Okay, so ayun lang. Thank you. Let's open the floor for questions. Any questions? Sheena, andyan ka ba?
Guys, please ask questions. Everybody on the live stream. Come on, guys. Just comment. Raise your hands.
Nahilo ata sila, nahilo.
Actually, Jason, we have one question from the live stream. It's from Emil. He's asking, what effects will the rise of cryptocurrencies and widespread narratives of the importance of decentralization have on the market? Will this even have an effect?
So, ba't ba na-invento to lahat ng cryptocurrency, lahat ng decentralization? Diba? I guess, where did it come from? So I think that's the first question you have to ask. So I think this came from all the crises that happened. Diba? Kasi parang people already have no trust in the government, no trust in the central bank, no trust in any authority figure. Tama ba o mali? Diba? So that's what's happening now. I think especially in the US, diba, there's so much inequality. People think they've been left behind. People think the system is unfair. Diba? So that's how all this cryptocurrency, how this decentralization started. Diba? People think it's a better system. Diba? So will it replace the traditional, very centralized system? Diba? Maybe. Diba? May sinabi ko kanina, may probable, plausible, possible. Diba? So I think at this point, it's way too early to say. But it's definitely, for me, nasa realm siya ng plausible or possible. Diba? So, and it's also not that simple. Kasi parang there's also a time element. Okay? Probable ba siya in 5 years, 10 years, 15? For me, hindi. Diba? For me, there's gonna be a gigantic fight. Diba? So, ito lang, just imagine, anong hinihingi ng mga crypto? Okay, there's no authority figure, there's no government, there's no central bank, just leave us alone. Diba? You're fighting against the whole system. Diba? I don't think it's gonna be an easy fight. Diba? Is decentralized better than centralized? I don't know. Diba? May pros and cons din yan. Diba? Ano yung benefit ano yung cons ng decentralized? Parang, okay, if something happens, there's no authority figure to fix it. Diba? O pag nawala yung pera mo, okay, sorry. Diba? So, parang dami pa eh. Pero marami din pitfalls yung centralized. Pero, I guess just to make it easy, there's no perfect system eh. I mean, there's no perfect eh. Diba? Sabi ng tao, okay, democracy is the best. But look what's happening to the US. For me, it's not working anymore. And actually, if you look at democracy in history, it's an aberration. Most of the time, the system is authoritarian, centralized. Actually, aberration yung democracy. Diba? I'm not saying, hindi ko na alam ano yung better. Sometimes, democracy is better, sometimes authoritarian is better. Historically, palipat-lipat lang yan eh. Parang it's a cycle also eh. So, ako, basta, I guess, for now, I think it's still a very speculative asset. But maybe someday that changes. But yun, diba?
Okay, hope that answers your question, Emil. Marco, go ahead.
For the Philippine stock market, should we look more at US interest rates compared to Philippine interest rates?
Uh, they both matter. They both matter. Pero I would say, bigger influence yung outside talaga. Kasi parang if you look at the participation of foreigners in our markets, bond market, stock market, yes, nabawasan the past few years, but it's still very big. Diba? And if like for example foreigners start to get interested again in emerging markets, I'm sure tataas yung participation nila. Diba? So by their participation, then that makes it connected to the what's happening in the US. Diba? So let's say completely closed yung sistema natin, then it doesn't matter. Okay?
Okay, we have another question from the stream. RJ is asking, will the rise of reverse repos we are currently seeing in the US have an effect in the market?
So far, I don't see any effect. But this repo market is just one such market of a lot of different markets. So I'm not hindi ako expert dun sa sa very specific markets na yun eh. So parang for me, I don't know. I think overall the market's still okay.
Alvin, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So you showed, sir, like the PSEI's trending sideways, and what would be the major reason, sir? Is it only because the earnings per share of the companies didn't increase that much, or are there other general market reasons, sir?
So as I said, when you look at the liquidity picture globally, especially in the US, that peaked out in 2013-14. And consequently, nag-peak out na din yung Philippines that time. Diba? So there was a minor blip in 2016-17, diba? I showed you guys na umakit yung liquidity, and guess what? The Philippine market reached 9,100 nun eh, from 6,000 eh. Diba? But 2018-19, first part of 2020, liquidity in global markets was going down. So that's a big factor. Diba? Pero yun nga, hindi lang naman yun yung factor. If you look at the earnings also, the earnings are actually flatlined for the past few years. So I would say, cycle din yun eh. Actually 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, the earnings was actually okay also. But the past few years, they've been flatlining. Parang earnings cycle din yan eh. Earnings cycle.
A follow-up question, sir. So you basically mentioned that beta risk, or like the market, has a greater effect than the individual corporate earnings. So is that like true for every scenario, or most scenarios? Like for example, what if a certain company has year-on-year growth naman, like, and its earnings per share is increasing a lot, but then liquidity in the whole market is going lower. So would that be a bad stock to buy?
Siyempre hindi parati, alam mo yan. There's always the exception. What we're talking here is really just ano yung probabilities. Diba? So let's say it's a good company, but the market's really, alam mo yan, panic selling, then most likely, probability-wise, hindi akit yan. Diba? But what if umakyat? E di bili natin. Diba? So that's why you also have to keep your eyes open eh. Diba? Kasi this is what I expect, another thing is happening, then syempre you have to that has to come into your analysis. Diba? Pero yeah, that's a good question. But I would say, like for example, flip side, let's say it's a strong market, Diba? Definitely, any company that has good fundamentals, akit yan. Diba? Kasi guess what? When it's a bull market, everyone's looking for opportunities. A lot of eyeballs looking for something to buy, diba?
Marco, you want to go ahead?
For, for the interest rates of the US, would you say that larger cap Philippine stocks, which historically have more foreign participation, are they more susceptible to rising US interest rates than, let's say, low cap stocks that don't really have that much foreign participation?
Uh, everything's connected. So I guess what's gonna happen is since the big caps have more foreign participation, then maybe they go up first. They go up first. But knowing the market, let's say umakit na lahat ng big caps, what's gonna happen next? People are gonna take profits on those, and then they're gonna look at ano pa kaya dito yung hindi na-appreciate. Diba? So most likely that's gonna happen. So if it's foreigners, they also participate in mid caps. Siguro sa small caps lang sila hindi nagpa-participate kasi parang it's too small for them.
Adrian, did you have a question? Do you want to go ahead?
I was just gonna ask about the interest rates also, but it was already answered, so I'm good na. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Alvin, before we get to you, there was someone from the live stream who was ahead. Ryan is asking, as retailers, how do we get access to data that will determine where the money flow is, given that we don't have access to the bulk data like full-time market participants?
This is actually very easy. We don't follow all the data flows, meaning, okay, ano yung data lumabas central bank, diba? Mostly what we follow is what's happening in the market. So actually, there's a lot of free out there, diba? So I don't know if you guys can send mayroon akong Excel file that shows all the tickers of everything in the global markets. So that's what you follow lang, diba? To see what's happening out there. Diba? Like for example, gold, ano yung gold? GLD, diba? Ano yung treasury bonds sa US? IEFTLT. So you just follow all of those things, diba? Maybe sign up for a TradingView account, may free siya. You put all the tickers there, then you look at it from time to time, diba? To judge for yourself what's happening out there.
Okay, Alvin, go ahead. All you.
So for example, we want to study a 10-year period in history, like why stock prices move that way. So how would we study it, and like what's our starting point, and then what would be the mindset going into studying that period?
Well, of course, you need to learn the basics, diba? How do you analyze fundamentals of company, diba? Yung 10-year financials, balance sheet, all of those things. Ano yung business prospects. So, same thing naman sa macro. Like you analyze the interest rates for the past 10 years, what happened to earnings, what's happening to the capex cycle, mga ganun. Diba? Or, you can just have a shortcut, go to COL, study the market snapshot. Diba? So actually, I'm very good at analyzing other people's work to make it easier. Alam mo yun? Diba? And actually, at the end of the day naman, I guess, analyzing all of those things, maybe it's more important if you're let's say you are an analyst at a pension fund, diba? You really do a deep dive in everything, then you need to look at those things. Diba? Pero as a trader, I'm very good at following people on Twitter, following people who have a good track record in analyzing the markets. Yun lang.
A follow-up question to the one by the Facebook live stream. So for the charts that you use, sir, like to track those different indices and the liquidity, are those free websites, or do you have to pay for those services?
There's like investing.com, may free siya. Yung TradingView, there's also a free. I think you only have to pay if you want the live data feed for markets, no? But you don't need that actually.
Thank you, sir.
Come on, guys. Keep the questions coming. May market sentiment part 2 pa tayo bukas. If there's something you don't understand, baka mahirapan kayo. Just ask away. We got time to kill pa naman. Everyone watching on the stream, please comment. We're taking everything.
Baka busy ata mag-trade yung mga tao eh.
Dami nangyayari sa market eh. How you guys doing, guys?
Exciting. Excited ako sa Philippines eh. Basta crisis breeds opportunity. I think Philippines has been the past 10 years, di ba, parang no man's land. I think now it's starting to have some life. So for me, very exciting times.
Another question, sir. So, yeah, in between, let's say, a bear and a bull market or a bear and a sideways market, is there a way to like precisely point at which time the sentiment's gonna change, or you're probably gonna feel it in more of a range, like a few months?
If I say that there was an exact time na ito na, I'd be lying to you. Diba? Most often it's actually feeling the market, following what's happening. Diba? Let's say for example, leading up to the March 2020 crash, what were we seeing? When we're following the US market, parang, wait, maybe I can share it. When we were following the US market in first quarter 2020, everything was going to the moon eh. Wait lang.
To jump on that, I think that the biggest takeaway here is that it's not about understanding it's not about understanding the frequency of it, but understanding that the price is telling you something's changing. Is I think what Jason is trying to jump on.
Yeah.
Because it's important for us to get the validation on price rather than to give a blanket statement now it's 3 months, 4, 6 months, or whatever it is timetable, right? Because what ends up happening during that period is that your mind will doze off and you will think now, okay, this is going to take another 3 to 6 months. Hindi mo natitignan yung markets, right?
Yeah.
When the reality is that you have to focus on what the price is telling you at any given point in time. So if there's something changing in price, you have to try to figure out what's changed there. What is the new catalyst? What is the thing that's driving price? What is what is the market trying to price it at this point in time? Right?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not about really prediction, diba? But yes, I have my own views, but I'm following the action closely. Diba? Hindi ko masabi, let's say, overbought yung market, kailan bababa? Ewan ko, I don't know. Diba? But when I see the market, I can tell you, oh, malapit na to. Diba? So, one example, like, yung March 2020, diba? So, this is the QQQs, this is Nasdaq. Diba? So, basically, 10 years chart no, pero if you zoom in, this is a huge, gigantic increase. Diba? So, we determined it's way overbought. Diba? Pero, kailan siya mababa? Hindi ko alam. Diba? So, what were the signs we're seeing here? We were seeing already the safe haven assets were already going up. Diba? In fact, going vertical at this time. So, if you look at the bonds, 2020, yan, nag-vertical na siya, umakit na siya. Diba? If you look at the gold, there were also 2020, start of 2020, even before the coronavirus hit, umakit na siya. Diba? So, overbought market, there was probably a catalyst coming, I don't know what, that would make it go down. In this case, lumabas yung coronavirus. Overbought stocks, Then you're seeing your defensive assets going up already. So yun, that's already one of the signs na, okay, something's happening here. Diba? So yun, so actually we made money back then, not much in shorting the stocks, no, but in going long the bonds and gold. So it's always much easier to go long than short. That's a basic rule that we follow. Diba? So the beauty of global markets is that you can hindi mo kailangan pilitin short yung stocks eh. There's a lot of ways to express your feelings, your ideas, much easier ways, diba? So in this case, what we did was we bought a put option on stocks, put option then long gold, long TLT. So ayun, so that's the use about following what's happening in the markets, diba? And also of course it helps if you have a view, diba? During that time parang I think it wasn't too hard naman to guess, diba, that okay, maybe this coronavirus is something scary that's happening, diba? Okay.
Sir. Another follow-up question. So, yeah, you mentioned that when times are bullish, people tend to become even more bullish, and yeah, the same for bearish. So, is there a way to know whether this bullish sentiment is actually true or grounded, or is it parang more on hype na? Or would you only have to look at price to be able to tell that?
If I was a purist, meaning pure technician, I would say I would completely ignore the why. Diba? What's important is price. Diba? But since we're FTSR, to us it's important. We also qualify that. Diba? Like especially if you're trading stocks. Diba? We would bet much less on a speculative stock versus one that really had fundamentals. Diba? Kasi yung speculative stock, anytime may news, pwedeng gap down 50% eh, or something eh. Diba? This is what I'm saying, that okay, there's only so much you can see on the chart. Diba? Yung mga factors that you don't see, mostly fundamentals, for us, that's important.
Okay, we have another question from the stream from Ryan. Given that money flow is determinant on your trade ideas, should we approach our positions by looking at the broad market first, then the sector, then the specific stock, or from identifying a specific stock, then checking the overall market condition?
So for us top down muna. So let's say we like the US market. What sector is outperforming? So then we go down deeper and we screen for stocks that are the strongest. Or actually, mostly top down. Pero you can also do it bottom up. Parang mix of both eh. Let's say, okay, US market is very strong. Let's screen for stocks that have went up 30% the past month. Diba? So parang mix of both, I would say. So we never go purely bottom up. Diba? So kasi parang ano yung danger ng purely bottom up? You try that bottom up analysis in the Philippines the past 3 years, you would know what I mean. Wala kang makikita. Or parang konti. Sobrang konti. It would be parang waste of time. I mean, if you had the option of going outside.
All right, Harold, you can go ahead.
So we talked about how yung global market is interconnected. But is it possible that all those indices that we're looking and the policies doesn't match now, or it doesn't make sense? Na like wala na yung correlation. And if that happens, where do we begin?
Yes. Yes, of course. There's always an exception. Diba? And actually, that's one way of looking for ideas, at least for me. Kasi I trade mostly macro in outside eh. Na, okay, if this A is supposed to be correlated to B, but it's not, I have to look at that. Diba? Kasi actually, that's where big ideas come from. Diba? Parang historically connected sila, ngayon hindi na. most of the time something very significant is happening. Diba? That would lead to a lot of new money flow in that space. Diba? Pero medyo mahirap na yung mga ganun. Very rare.
Thank you.
Sige, may isa pa. Sige. Like, for example, I guess you're looking at the whole emerging market space. The whole emerging market is weak. Philippines going up. Ayun, that deserves more, more scrutiny. So yeah, things like that.
Adrian, go for it.
I guess for me, in terms of following trends, like how do you gauge like if you're still not too late? Because sometimes, let's say, you go in and then parang bigla, parang the trend is parang it's already like what we discussed a while ago, parang priced in already.
Sige. So that's where you have to learn how to look at price charts, no? Diba? So, how late is it? Actually, depende sa time frame mo. Pero let's just say default one year. 1 year, 2 years, diba? So what we look at, very easy way to look at that is this is more trend analysis, no? The distance of the price in the 200-day EMA. So, eto, nakita niyo yung share ko, diba? For example, the gold. Diba? So, anytime, like, look at that, the distance between this and the 200 days getting big, lumalaki siya. Diba? Alam mo na, you're near the overbought level. I don't know where it's gonna stop, of course, but just saying, overbought. Diba? Diba? Kasi parang, like for example this, diba? So here, you have a base here going sideways. So the divergence, the difference between 200 day is small. Diba? So when it rallies, it gets very big. Alam mo, parang the analogy is like parang it's a rubber band. Diba? It gets too stretched. Diba? And knowing the behavior of the market, where in human psychology, when things go up, okay, I sell. I made money already. Diba? When things go down too much, I buy. Diba? So parang think of the markets as a rubber band where the center is the on a 1-2 year chart is the 200 day. Okay? Diba? So when
Jump on that.
Oh, sige, go.
Yeah, to jump on that, hindi pa tinuturo but you're talking about, you're talking about the base counting that eventually, I hope, will be taught in the next few modules, right? So that's something that hasn't been brought up yet.
Yep. So, kasi yung logic lang yan, parang the more money people are making, let's say sitting on big profits, then dun ka you're vulnerable if you're entering in that space, diba? So let's say if the prices went nowhere for the past year, most likely people are not profitable. Diba? So that's a good place to come in actually. Parang that's a good base of support eh. Diba? Kasi parang okay, are people gonna buy this if they don't think it's gonna go up? Diba? Diba? So most likely at that level, let's say it goes down to a certain price, that's where they're buying, they're accumulating that level. So ayun, so you have to learn some basic trend analysis to understand ano yung sabihin ng sinasabi namin.
Got this. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, actually that's a topic for tomorrow eh. May minor basic trend analysis tayo. But of course that's gonna be discussed more on the technical part.
Guys, questions pa?
Easy.
Okay, are we okay? Ibig sabihin ba nun maganda yung ano ko? Maganda yung presentation ko? Walang questions?
Jason, if no one else is asking questions muna, somebody is asking on the stream if they can have a copy of your Excel sheet, yung may tickers, the one you presented kanina, or if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
confidential.
No. It's open to all. Sige, we can send that.
Okay, thank you. I'll to RJ who was asking for it, I'll send it to you after the session.
So, maraming laman yun pero the way I see it is, it's like parang, I look at it in buckets. What's the emerging market bucket? Diba? What's the developing market bucket? So, what's industrial commodities? They mostly move as one. Like iron, nickel, copper, mga ganyan. So, it's marami siya pero actually it's very few buckets only. Diba?
Any final questions, guys? If there's no one else who needs anything, we can wrap it up there now. So, okay, I think that's it. Let's call it there. So thank you again, Jason, for your time today. Thank you everybody for attending the live session. If you love what you saw today, please stay tuned for tomorrow's session because Jason will be coming back at 10 a.m. to pick up where he left off to continue the topic of market sentiment part 2. Hope you all have a great and productive day ahead of you. Stay safe. We look forward to seeing you there. Everybody on the Zoom call, please stay. Everybody on the live stream, thank you again and see you there tomorrow.
Okay, see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, we ended the video. Guys, please stay lang for a sec.
Yeah, so guys, just wanted to check up how's everything been so far with your experience with the program. Things you're having a little bit of difficulty on. If you guys need, you got questions on things you don't understand, things that are confusing, things we can assist you guys with what you guys are seeing today. Yeah. So how you guys feeling so far?
Just
What's
to
up?
clarify lang, if I may ask.
Sure.
So, yung deep dives ba is for all of the companies that were assigned to us or pick one? Because I'm checking some of the submissions kasi nga syempre comparing your own to relative, di ba? So,
China.
China.
Dali, medyo,
I'll call her.
yeah, I'm not the right guy to answer that question kasi hindi ako nakikialam dyan sa Give me a sec. May tanong sila sa'yo.
What's the question?
I wanted to ask lang if yung deep dive, ang required is we pick one company of the three or we make a deep dive for all three.
Are you pick one?
Okay.
Pick one muna.
Nalilito lang kasi ako sa submissions eh.
Sorry, you can also ask your mentor if nalilito kayo anywhere para they can guide you. Constant feedback naman tayo here. Who's your mentor?
Check ko.
In the room.
Ako halatang hindi masyado nagko-communicate.
Sige, I'll let them know. Pero any questions you can ask any mentor You can ask me. No problem.
May gusto magtanong sa'yo, nangangagat ka daw eh.
No, not me. Hindi ka ako. Ay, yun. Pero
Yeah, any guys have any questions on the content so far? Difficulty, concerns, complaints, negative reactions?
Yeah, we'll adjust naman. If you feel like the pace is too fast, we can do a one-on-one with you guys para everyone's on the same page. Okay?
Wala.
Yeah.
Nalulunod pa sa content ngayon. Mukhang nalulunod pa sila lahat.
Galing kay Jason eh. Joke lang.
Andiyan pa si Jason. Narinig ko na. Yeah, Jethro, you had a question?
Mahirap ba yun?
Yeah, question lang. Will we get a copy of all the PowerPoints?
Yeah, we can make it available for you. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Hindi naman babasahin ulit. Pero sige.
Padala mo yung akin. Pinaka maraming content yung akin.
Kay Edmond rin.
Panay cartoons, tsaka ano.
Parang blackboard.
Mas masaya yung gano'n interaction kaysa sa ano.
Yeah.
Anyone have any other difficulty? You guys better bring it up kasi pag hindi niya naintindihan, at least we can talk about it, right?
Habang maaga, you have to.
Just a question for the homework. It says like today there's like evaluate the company deep dive. That's one pager. If ever, what's that from? Or will it be discussed after pa? O kasi in the program schedule, parang there's evaluate the company deep dive. That's one pager due this Friday. Will it be discussed pa or
Will it be?
will it be like discussed?
Sige, I'll tell you your mentors na lang also. Kaya medyo maaga yung mga deadlines para there's feedback. Kasi so whatever you send, we expect na ayusin pa natin yan para everyone's streamlined eh. I think some of the teams, yung team ni Jordan, I think you're meeting later to check also your output. I'm gonna tell the other mentors to schedule meetings also.
To my team, I sent out feedback na today, guys. Just let me know what you guys think. If you need help anywhere you wanna work on, improve.
Para one-on-one they can check it. Okay?
I promise you guys, among all the mentors, I'm the nicest one.
Review na natin to.
Wala pang violent reactions eh. So okay lang.
So far.
Wala kasing kasama si EG dito eh.
Wala pa. Yeah? You're good?
Lahat naintindihan ha. Naku, pag naintindihan nyo lahat na expectations, mataas. Mahirap na.
For sure yan. For sure.
Yeah. We're good.
I think so.
Okay. But if you guys have anything, better ask your mentors para ano. Kasi the difficult part is if you don't understand certain things and then you're out of the program, what happens is that you're gonna have to track these guys down at the end, diba? Which will take a more difficult time. So if you guys don't understand certain things, highly encourage you guys to ask these guys while you're here. Para there's a lot of clarification and things that because there's a lot of nuance in trading. But that's the most difficult part there. So nuance, we can give it out of the box as much as best we can, right? But if you don't cater it to your own refinement, right? There's still no. I had a good call with. Let me pull this up. So I sent this meme. It was a meme. It says, when you availed every trading seminar, but you still don't get the result that you want. What does that mean? Pakita ko yung meme ko kasi...
You can share? Or...
Yeah, how can I share it to you? But may Viber ka ba dyan?
Si EG.
Sige, padala ko sa'yo.
Bye, boss.
You guys have to talk to your mentors, Pero shoot questions.
Grabe, scary daw. Si EG lang daw di scary dito.
Nice.
Even I'm scared of fire.
Grabe.
Sa kami ng meeting, diyan papalay. Ano daw si Jason. Thank you, Jason!
Thank you, Jason. Saan ka dito? Enrique.
So,
Lalabas ba dyan?
hindi ba na-publish the cash prizes, no?
Grabe, namimigay ng pera.
Kasi it's a competition by team, kaya it's important then that you interact with your teammates and mentors.
I'll share screen.
Yeah.
Kasi competition yan eh. You guys have to work together eh.
Yeah. Diba? So, what's the connotation or context when I show something like this? Bakit kahit lahat ng seminar, meron ako kilala, professional nag-attend ng seminar. No, seriously, like we have people like that are, they just go to attend the seminars for the sake of attending seminars.
Seminarista.
Right? So what's the connotation or context when I show you something like this? Let's see if we have some names here. Elena, help me out here. What's your connotation when you see
I
something?
think it means that learning goes both ways. Like it's not just us learning from like the PowerPoint presentation or the lecture itself. I think learning also comes with critical thinking and being active enough to stimulate your own questions and stimulate your own level of understanding, so that aside from the seminar itself, it requires a tantamount, like a certain level of one's own initiative in terms of learning.
Almost there. Almost there. Learning without actually doing is not enough, is the
Yes.
context, right? So there has to be a level of application, not just sitting there and trying to get it all in your head. Diba? Kasi you have to remember one thing, in regards to learning, there's no such thing as you learn everything. A lot of people don't want to act because they feel like you're inadequate in terms of the knowledge that you have. How many people really feel that way? Honest, I know. Can I get a hands up? Those people who feel like they don't want to act because they don't know enough. Anybody here that feel like that? Is there anybody here that feels like it doesn't matter to them how much they know or not know, pero tira lang sila ng tira? Meron din bang ganun? Can I get a thumbs up pag may ganun? Walang ganun. Si Sheena lang pala yung
Meron
ganun.
no?
Meron isa, yan. Diba? Kasi meron din ganyan diba? So here's the context that was replied to me after that message. I think that one is very powerful. So there's this meme, and I sent this out, and then the reply was just as powerful. Saan ba yung reply ko? Hindi, wala talaga kita. Dahil kong pausap sandali. Yung reply ko na. It's a very powerful reply. Looking for a system versus refining a system. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Looking for a system versus refining a system. Royce, what does that mean?
I think it means the first one is more you're looking for the solution, versus the second one, it's more you're just trying to improve yourself every day.
Why is that important?
Which one, sir?
That statement. Why is that? What is that? Why is that thought process important?
I think it's important maybe because like with what you've been teaching us the past few days, and yeah, there's no one perfect system. So rather than simply searching for the perfect one, we should just focus on improving ourselves talaga.
I think it's more about understanding where you are in that spectrum. A lot of people are stuck searching forever. I think that's one thing, especially when I'm working with traders, is a lot of traders are on a constant hunt for the perfect system or what they think is the all-encompassing system, which in reality is not ever present. You'll never find it. Diba? Pero forever sila nagsisearch, kaya sila attend ng seminar, kaya lahat ng YouTube video papanoorin nila, kaya lahat ng they were never going to be satisfied because they feel like there's something that's better than what they're currently using today. Right? But the difficulty there is because of the constant search, you never have a set parameters that you're looking for. Diba? So that's what is going to be critical moving forward is you have to get to a point where you understand, okay, this is more than enough information that I have at my disposal. I got to start getting to work in terms of refining what I know versus trying to add more tools in the toolbox, right? Kasi we're all searching for the best set of tools at our disposal. You have to learn how to use all the tools, which is what we're trying to teach you today, di ba? Or eventually, kailangan you have to have a mastery of those tools. So you have to have a realization up to a certain point. These tools are ample enough for me. I have to have a specialty on learning how to use the nuance of each of the tools. Right? Kasi ngayon, parang blast eh. How many of you guys feel like it's a blast of content that you guys are receiving? Or parang chill lang kayo kasi kaya-kaya eh. Meron bang, how many of you guys feel like it's like an overwhelming blast of content? Right? Because I'm so sure na you guys will be like, can I get the PowerPoint so I can go over it again? Or I'll watch this video again later on to see if I can learn something more about it. Diba? Kasi ang dami niyan eh. Kaya nga bootcamp eh. Diba? Kaya nga bootcamp eh. Kasi we're just blasting you guys with content eh. Right? That's what I'm worried about. It's that we have to keep up with ano, diba? So why I encourage you guys to ask is so that you're not going to get everything all at once. That's not the expectation. Diba? But the bits and pieces of what you can pick up, you have to be able to build on that nuance to grow and understand and get a better familiarity with building the nuance. Or else, mangyayari nga, it's just blast of information and you end up with nothing. Diba? That's what I'm afraid of. Okay? So things like that. Just want to make sure that level-headedness on that front is going to be important for people who are learning this industry out right off the bat. Okay? Right? So the best way to learn is to do. Right? So do it, make mistakes. For those of you who want a perfect system, no such thing. So do what Sheena does, fire, fire, fire. Maybe may ready. No need to aim, just fire.
Tatama rin yun.
Tatama rin yan. You fire enough bullets. Isang tatama rin yan. Right? So one thing that when I have worked with traders, I don't know if I brought this up, is it is so difficult to teach a person how to fire. I'm not sure if you guys understand what that means. I have traders that come to me and they have difficulty entering orders or having the decision making is so parang takot sila magkamali, right? And the end outcome of that is what we call analysis paralysis. You can make every excuse not to enter an order. That's what's been happening to a lot of my traders recently is they can make because the markets were hard, you can make every excuse not to enter orders. Ay, parang illiquid. Ay, less than parang $3 lang yung presyo, right? So because of you can make every excuse, what happens is that when the game plan is set, when the lights go on, you will still make excuses. So the mentality of execution is one that is the hardest to build, which is funny. Diba? A lot of people are like China na pindot ng pindot o sila BJ na enter an order. Diba? You have to remember, it's easier to teach someone when to shoot, not how to shoot. Not sure if that resonated with everybody, but the ability for a person to make good decisions right on the money and execute without the ramifications and caring for the ramifications or consequences is hard to build. If you're looking for the perfect chart with the perfect company, before you shoot, man, you're trading once a quarter. Diba? Sobrang hirap maghanap ng perfect criteria. Diba? So you have to be able to get the best criteria possible and deal with the ramifications, because the ramifications are risk controlled anyway. Diba? So, wala pa ata sila sa ano eh. Wala pa ata sila sa execution, no?
Not yet, not yet.
Wala pa.
Next technicals.
Sige, yan. Makakahinga na kayo next week. Ngayon this week, pinupuusap pa kayo ni Jason ng
Contact is.
Uy, mabait na nga si Jason ngayon eh. 20 slides lang daw ngayon eh.
Dati.
Wala, dati 80 slides. Hingal na kayo. Tingnan natin kung saan kayo pupulutin pagkatapos ng Kalum na program. Diba? Good. All right. You guys have a good lunch. If you have questions, ask. No matter how crazy you think the question is, ask anyway. Diba? What's your favorite color? Sir Easy, what's your favorite color?
It's blue.
Di ba pink?
It's blue.
Don't wrap me out, guys.
Blue. The color of his eyes though, kasi blue. Right? Ask. Diba? Like that's what I'm saying. Because one of the things that you will not understand is that because you ask, the relationship between you and your mentor will improve. If you're going to be sitting there not, and this is my secret to you guys. If you ask now, when the program ends, you can still ask him. If you don't ask now, when you're going to ask after the program, hindi ka na kilala. Diba? Right? So you make your adjustments to build your ability for you to lay groundwork and working with the people that are in this industry today. Because eventually one day you want to get into this industry. Diba? It'll be like, kilala ko nga si Sir EG eh. EG, tanongin ko, kamusta yan? Marunong ba talaga yan o hindi? Kahit hindi ka marunong, sabihin ni EG yan, marunong yan. Diba? Right? So, what I'm trying to say is that why do you think we sit here and chat with you guys after the program? It's for us to be able to see your faces. Why I ask you guys to turn your cams on is so I can see your faces. One day we will walk in Starbucks and you'll see me in Starbucks after this pandemic, and then you'll see my face, and then you'll come up and say, "Hey, I was Abe from the internship when we were in the and I'll remember your face." You get what I'm saying? Right? So if you see me in the mall, wherever it is, one day, diba? At least you can come up to me and say, "Hey, hi, Sir Lawrence. You remember me from this program," diba? Right? And that's going to be good when you work with your mentors, when you work with these people down the road, is when you see them and you build this network one day. Very powerful tools. But if you don't ask questions and you just fade into the existence of a black box, even if you come up to me one day, "Oh, you were in the program. I don't remember you." Diba? Right? So those things are important and why we encourage that. Build a relationship, get to know these guys. What's their favorite color? So, nakita mo, "I remember you. Your favorite color is blue, EG." Or not. Diba? All right? Okay. Good. Enjoy the content. I hope hindi kayo nalulunod. Good luck.
Enjoy lunch, guys. Thank you. See you tomorrow. End ko na.
Sige.